Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from worldwide. I'm Sterling. Great to have you back here on the channel. It's always a pleasure getting together once a week. So thanks for taking the time to come by and hang out. Want to remind everybody, all this information is for entertainment purposes only. And I also want to start off by wishing everybody a happy 4th of July, wherever you're celebrating from. With you with friends or family or just a backyard barbecue, welcome. Hope you have an enjoyable 4th of July holiday. I want to remind everybody to like, subscribe, share, and even ring the notification bell so that you get alerted to whenever we put videos up to this channel. When you do that, that helps the back-end algorithms of YouTube and really is very helpful for the channel. In addition, if anyone needs to book a session with me, it's very easy to do. Just navigate to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the book online tab. My team keeps the calendar completely up to date, so all the times you see up there are available. So let's jump into today's show. I want to start off by announcing the winners. We actually reached 17,000 subscribers on the channel. So we have 2 winners to announce. One was a winner of a half-hour session with Linda Grindle, and the other was a half-hour session with myself. So with no further ado, the winners are Sandra Von Bush. Congratulations, you've won a half-hour session with Linda Grindle. And I also want to send out sincere thanks to Linda Grindle for offering up the half-hour session, and really it's a wonderful gesture. So congratulations, Sandra Von Bush. You won a free half-hour session with Linda Grindle. The winner of the free half-hour session with myself is Sue F. That's Sue, F as in Frank. So for both Sandra and Sue, if you just notify our offices, info@sterlingpsychicmedium.com, we'll make sure that we get you all set up with the half-hour sessions with myself and then with Linda. So congratulations. Let's get into the topics of today's show. We're actually going to cover life purpose in all the major categories and also life cycles. And we're also going to do a top 30 countdown, frequently asked questions that I get all the time. So let's jump right in. So, there are several different types of life purposes at kind of a high level. And it's kind of important to understand where you fall within kind of these high level definitions of life cycles. And there really are hundreds of subcategories. The first thing I'll tell you is when I talk to people and I tell them what their life purpose is, many times, if they had not realized it, they're already in a career, for example, that complements that life purpose. Or they'll say something like, I thought so, I always had interest in that area. And we'll define what those areas are. So let's jump in here. There are really 7 major categories to life purpose, high level categories. Again, there's hundreds of subcategories. But the top 7 are teacher. Number 2 is healer. Number 3 is inventor. Number 4 is innovator. Number 5 is leader. Number 6 is explorer. And number 7 is pathfinder. So let's go through and define a little bit more about what each of these means. So as a teacher, you're responsible for taking in information and disseminating it to others. So you could be a teacher in a conventional school, or you might even be a teacher in a retail environment or business or corporate environment. But if your life purpose is teacher, you're really responsible for taking information in and then disseminating it to others and helping them with that. Number 2, as a healer, almost self-explanatory, but many different ways to be a healer. You could be a doctor, you could be a spiritualist, you could in fact do Reiki healing, or you might in fact be something in the entertainment industry that really helps heal and lift the human spirit. So you can be a healer in kind of a broad spectrum. Number 3 is inventor. So if you're an inventor, what you're really doing is channeling like creative and scientific elements from the universe and putting them into practice so other people can benefit from them. Number 4 was innovator. And if you're an innovator, that would be somebody that looks at situations and is able to transform them into something completely new. Some good examples of this are like Richard Branson with Virgin Galactic and the things he's doing, or people like Jeff Bezos. In fact, how he transformed the entire e-commerce industry. So as an innovator, you're looking at things and situations that exist and transforming them. Number 5, as a leader, you're given this gift as a life purpose because many people will kind of stand up and take notice. So when you talk, they will listen. So there's a leadership component to your life purpose where you're supposed to instructionally kind of help guide people. Number 6, as an explorer, these are individuals with a life purpose that have a very inquisitive thirst for knowledge relative to all things large and small on the earth. So it could be everything from things like atoms all the way to large territories on the earth. But as an explorer, you're really looking out at things that exist and trying to understand them better. And number 7 was a pathfinder. And there's many elements associated with being a pathfinder, but what you're doing there is you're helping people kind of along their path, along their journey. And, for example, you might find a lot of social workers or counselors in this pathfinder life purpose area. It's interesting that the pathfinder does couple in, some other things. You might also be a healer as a pathfinder, but there's a little bit of, you can have certainly a dual life purpose crossing some of these areas, but those are really the top 7. Now, right now on Earth, there are a lot of light workers, people that came down here to help the Earth. And it's interesting, there's a lot of combined life path purposes for, let's say, teacher and healer. Now, when we align ourselves to our life purpose, what happens is we're helping to manifest our goals, we're helping others manifest their goals, and we easily transition kind of from life cycle to life cycle. Now, you may ask, what are life cycles? So life cycles, everybody on the planet is on either 7 or 10-year life cycles. And life cycles denote kind of major changes in your life. They're periods of learning, of growth, of newness. That could be around job, career, relationship, where you live. Typically, when individuals start off a life cycle, it's common to have questions like, who am I? What am I? Where am I going? As you get into the life cycle, then you start benefiting from what that life cycle is all about. Now, many people, the easiest way to, I guess, understand with your 7 or 10-year life cycle is to sometimes look at very major events in your life. And you actually see the way they kind of queue up and align to either 10 or 7-year cycles. Interestingly enough, when we all get to the age of 70 here on Earth, the way the math works out, everybody on the planet at 70 completes a life cycle and starts a new one. So these are just, some interesting things, and I hope they'll be beneficial to you to understanding kind of where you are. And more importantly, when I talk to a lot of people, sometimes people do have that kind of who am I, what am I, where am I going? And right away, we'll see very quickly that sure enough, they've just completed a life cycle and starting a new one. So very natural rhythm to life cycles. And when you're on your life cycle and you're certainly aligning to your life purpose, you certainly are then able to manifest much more easily and kind of move through life. So hopefully this was helpful. So now let's get into the top 30 countdown of frequently asked questions. And thank you very much for all the questions that were submitted. The questions are getting better and better and more thoughtful, more creative. So we actually have 2 bonus questions before I get into the top 30. We had so many this week. So let's start off. Bonus question number 1 was, will we ever see peace between Israel and Palestine? The answer is yes, but it won't really start to take real shape for another decade minimum. But I do see it almost within 10 years. Unfortunately, the reason this happens is that nuclear threat becomes much more of a problem for many countries, and we end up with much better management techniques, and ETs get involved with managing nuclear threats. So this starts to create a balance, and we will start to see peace between Israel and Palestine with the world community getting involved. So, I think that's a little bit of good news there. Bonus question number 2. 2 former Australian prime ministers are calling for a royal commission into Rupert Murdoch and Fox News, which are based in Australia. Will they be successful in their goal of breaking up Murdoch media empire? Yes, this references was it Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull on that royal commission. And yes, I do see it successful in that they're actually going to be able to create much more of a commission that holds news organizations liable for anything that they transmit or broadcast. So there's going to be some sort of responsibility factor on vetting the information. And if they don't, then there's liability. So I do see there's going to be a bit of better regulation. And I also see them being able to kind of break up some of that empire so that it's a service to the public as opposed to creating chaos. I do. Let's get into the top 30 countdown of frequently asked questions. So number 30, will Biden make Election Day a national holiday? Yes, I believe this will be eventually a national holiday. And this is all going to be tied to the For the People Act, which I see as actually being passed within 2022. It won't be this year. Going to see a lot of revisions in For the People Act, but we're actually going to get to a place where we'll have a negotiable agreement, and it will include Election Day as a national holiday. In fact, I think even Joe Manchin had proposed this as well. So number 29 in the countdown, what will our government do about the judges in the red states who are helping with voter suppression? So these will gradually get replaced over the next 8 years. It's not going to be a fast process, but we'll see a gradual replacement, and it's certainly, not going to wait for 8 years, but we're going to see it kind of gradually take shape over about an 8-year period. We'll see replacements, and the Voting Rights Act will certainly help to mitigate a lot of the problems that were created by, let's say, some of these judges in some areas. Number 28 in the top 30 countdown, is karma the only consequence people face for negative behavior? First and foremost, karma is not a consequence. And I hear this all the time. What karma is a pull forward from lessons in prior lives that you want to benefit from, leverage from, continue learning from this earth. So the very nature of the question, is karma a consequence? It's not a consequence. It's a continuation of learnings being brought forward. So it's not a negative element for your life path. Number 27, Sterling, will there ever be any hope of those of us who suffer from dyslexia in the near future? Yes. Like many times we brought this up, gene editing and gene splicing technology will be very beneficial to people suffering from dyslexia. The interesting thing is that we all choose our life path when we come down here, and dyslexia has a very detailed purpose. One of them is the ability to be an out-of-the-box thinker. So there's really somewhat of a benefit to dyslexia, even though some individuals might feel like it's a burden. But it's part of the way your construct came into this universe, and certainly for this lifetime, that's something you thought would be beneficial. So there will be help with gene editing, gene splicing for, let's say, mitigating some of those factors. But remember that part of the way you are is an out-of-the-box thinker. So that's one of the benefits you brought down here. Number 26, what is the future of the Flynn brothers? So, a lot of litigation, a lot of ongoing litigation. We already, see some going on between Flynn brothers, one of the Flynn brothers and CNN, but it looks like there'll be continuing litigation also relative to, the January 6th events. Number 25, was there divine, angelic, or ET intervention on January 6th to protect members of Congress in the Capitol building? Yes, absolutely. And this is a very good example of angelic intervention protecting people, and certainly protecting people if it's not their exit point. So there absolutely was. So I did not see ET interaction, but I certainly saw angelic interaction on that day. Number 24 in the top 30 countdown, Edith Hurd, molecular biologist, claims we will be dying from antibiotic-resistant bacteria infections in a decade. Do you see this coming? No, not at all. Again here, gene editing and gene splicing techniques that were going to be very prevalent within a 5-year period here are really going to be able to take care of a lot of these sorts of problems, and this is just one of them. But I don't see a lot of people dying from, let's say, antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Number 23, what's the best time to connect with my guides? I've been trying the paper and pencil method, but I keep getting distracted by the music in my head. So, this harkens back to some techniques that I offered up that I've really done with large groups of people, and it's very effective. But at a baseline, if you start imagining you can hear your guides, what happens is the creative side of everyone's mind is connected to the universe. So any creative people that channel music or a novel or sculpture or a painting, that's using that creative portion of the mind. So I would say at a baseline, start off by an exercise, just imagining you can hear your guides and then journal what you hear. Then to get more specific about it, I like that 5 minute a day exercise of calling your primary angels and guides forward, asking them to reveal any messages they have for you, and then crafting a very specific question that you use every day for 5 minutes for about that 2 week period. That's all. Your mind's a muscle. It's like going to the gym. So it takes practice, but start off with a baseline of just using your imagination, creative side of your brain, work that mind muscle, and then you kind of, gradually work up to it. Everybody can do it. Everybody is born a psychic medium, and just takes a little practice. Most everybody puts the gift down in childhood at 5 or 6 years old. So you can pick it up again. And more on that, if we need to go through and have another show on working with your guides and angels and communicating, we can do that. Number 22 in our top 3 countdown, we hear about earthbound spirits who are stuck here while their loved ones are waiting from the other side. Is there any way to avoid this? So first off, let me be clear, no one is stuck here. Actually, once you cross over, you have the full ability to move on, to stay around loved ones. So no one's really stuck. As soon as you cross over, you join your larger spiritual family. And so that's important. Individuals may want to come back to Earth more, spend more time around family, but no one is technically stuck. Everyone has the ability to move on. Number 21, which higher form entities have the most involvement with keeping Earth on track, spiritual or alien? Aliens are not angels. Angels do all the heavy lifting here on Earth. Angels are certainly very high vibrational energy, very close to the one force, which is God. ETs are higher vibrational energy in some cases than humans, in some cases, but they do not do a lot of heavy lifting here on Earth. ETs do what they can to stop, the Earth from getting involved in nuclear war and things that would certainly devastate the Earth. But angels really do all the heavy lifting to kind of keep the planet and Earth on track. Number 20, what is going on in the suicide forest in Japan? Why are people seemingly drawn to it? They say there's deathly quiet, no animal sounds at all. Well, this is a forest area that's very close to Mount Fuji in Japan, and it is a highly spiritual area. But this is somebody that has suicide on their path. That's a whole different discussion. But it's not the area is not something. Let's say that area that's near Mount Fuji, this forest, is not something that's drawing people in. It's highly spiritual, and so some people find comfort in that area. But the relationship to suicide, even though they're quite frequent there, it's not a direct cause, if you will. So, 19. How do you help children develop their intuitive psychic abilities? It's interesting. Children are born into this world as psychic mediums, and many times I've been around children that, for example, think they see monsters in the closet or something of that nature, and they may in fact be seeing grandma or grandpa. And, when you're young, you don't know what you're seeing. But the good way to start off children, again here, help them start off with a very active imagination and help with their creative skills. This kind of works the entire mind muscle. Teach them how to pray, how to listen to their still small inner voice. That's your angels and guides. So you kind of start them off in a very slow path. And as they start getting to a point where they start receiving information and some sort of directive in their life, you can certainly enhance that with more in-depth understandings of who their angels and guides are, how to communicate, how to work with your still small inner voice. So, it's a method, but I would say start off small with imagination and creativity, encourage them to use their mind that way, and then move on to other spiritual methods. Number 18, will anything change with the pharmaceutical companies in the near future? Will drug prices be reduced? They will, but we've got about a 5-year run here before we're going to see really dramatic differences. Those dramatic differences in, say, pharmaceutical and drug costs will come about through new government programs. But one of the most interesting elements will be much more competitive forces in the market from companies like Amazon that will offer up free in some cases and highly discounted pharmaceuticals. This will create a competitive environment that will force some of the for-profit pharma companies to start to do other things. That, coupled with new government health programs, will all help. So I do see the cost coming down. Number 17 in our top 30 countdown, the Delta variant. What is the impact on America? So, bit of a hard road for those that are watching the news. And I've talked about this months ago that I saw this this big second wave of COVID, and I call it a second wave. There have been other variants, but this Delta variant will be something that'll be a little challenging for the U.S., especially some states where individuals aren't vaccinated. Good news is that if you're vaccinated, the Delta variant can be managed, and from all the current studies, looks like you won't pass. But there is, concern for individuals that are not vaccinated. Those include, younger children. So the watchword is we all need to be careful. All need to continue to mask up where appropriate, but just be very, very careful out there. But through the end of the year, 2021, we'll all have to be managed and be very careful with the Delta variant running around. Number 16, will color therapy go more mainstream in the near future? Yes. Within a short number of years here, you're going to start to see it much more integrated into major national healthcare plans and hospitals. This is really, we're going to see a very large trend here over the next number of years around the medical industry and what I call East meets West types of disciplines. So color therapy, helping to balance the energy centers or chakras in a person will be something that will be much more mainstream. So you'll see color therapy will be part of it, absolutely. 15, will gene editing be available to everyone or only people who can afford it? So it will eventually be available to everyone. That's the good news, absolutely. It will take about 10 years for widespread adoption of all the benefits of gene editing and gene splicing. Within 5 years, the major developments that we're going to see are going to start off with trials and availability to some people for some types of diseases. So it will be available to all individuals at all income levels. Number 14, do you reincarnate with all your energy or is some part of it left behind in the spiritual world? You reincarnate with your full spiritual being. So that includes all your energy, all the life lessons, but you don't leave any of your energy behind. Your full spiritual being reincarnates. Number 13, do you see a great global famine coming to take place over the next 15 years? Will people have to grow their own food? A lot of fear in some of these questions, but I understand it. No, I don't see a great famine coming. What I do see over the next 5 to 10 years here, so kind of over the next decade, I would go 2020 to 2030, we're going to see many more green food technologies implemented of ways to grow different types of healthier food in more what I'll call drastic climates or areas where they couldn't grow food. So I don't see a big famine coming, but I do see the insurgence of a lot of green food technology that's going to help worldwide. Number 12, there are 23 QAnon members running for Congress. Will any of them get in? Interestingly enough, I think right now there's probably no less than 36 QAnon candidates running. What I get on that is we're only going to see a very small handful, so maybe no more than 6 or less than 6 candidates will get in, but there'll be a weeding out process, and it's not going to be a huge effect. But it is interesting, what we're seeing in politics today, but I don't see a large number getting in. My guys are saying less than 6. 11, my understanding is that in our next evolution, we will develop light bodies. What does this mean? So no direct knowledge of this statement in terms of light bodies. We certainly continue to evolve, and we evolve more and more energetically. And this certainly puts us, closer and closer to the one force, so to speak. But we don't come back as a light body. So maybe it's an interpretation of how the person asked the question, but we certainly evolve and become more and more closer to the light. Number 10, what is the best way to remove stuck emotions in the body? So, a lot of times stuck emotions can come from trauma, but it's best to start out by asking your angels and guides, your team, to step up and help heal your soul, heal your thoughts, and forgive the items that you're kind of unnecessarily taking ownership of and carrying as baggage. So there's a process here, but you have to start off by working with your angels and guides understand that, what was the life lesson. Normally there's a life lesson that has to be learned there. Certainly all traumas have that characteristic. And then once you learn that lesson, many times if you take that trauma or that stuck emotion in your body and you help others heal from the same trauma, that helps with the healing process for you too. So it's a little bit of pay it forward. Number 9, what bad habits have a significant impact on our spirituality? The most frequent bad habit is fear. So you've maybe heard me talk about this many times. Fear is false evidence appearing real. But anytime we get engaged in a lot of fear or anxiety, this shuts down kind of our mind muscle, that channel to the other side. So that's the most common thing that gets in the way of spiritual development, and kind of easy to wrangle, if you will, and take hold of and relax. Sometimes, some simple meditation techniques can help relax some of those fears. But remember, you don't have to meditate to speak with your guides and angels. You can do that in real time as well. 8 in our top 30 countdown. Do we get insights, notifications when our family members or loved ones are being reborn? No, not directly. And I think the person that's asked this question relates to if you're here on Earth, do you get notifications? Typically, people reincarnate in life cycles that are much longer in duration or apart than the human life here on Earth. So they may reincarnate in cycles that are 100 years apart or 140 years apart. So you won't necessarily get that notification when you're here on Earth. However, when you're on the other side and you rejoin with your larger spiritual family of hundreds of individuals, you certainly know when family members are deciding to come down and reincarnate. Number 7, currently in New York State, staff in hospitals and nursing homes are not required to get the COVID vaccine. Will that change? Yes, and a lot of that's going to change as a result of really the COVID Delta variant and some of this kind of big second wave we're going to be experiencing here. As you get through towards the end of this year, you'll see a lot of states and a lot of kind of new mandates coming about to require vaccines in certain very critical situations. Number 6, Kamala Harris has been getting lots of bad press. Is her office really in disarray? So not really in disarray, but what I get is that she's trying to focus down on really what she wants to spend the majority of her time on. I do believe what they're telling me is that when the infrastructure deal gets passed, that the whole Biden administration will end up dividing up some of these tasks, and Kamala will start focusing down on a number of elements that are part of the infrastructure deal. The border has been a very, terrible situation. And she's been very careful along with her office as to how much ownership she wants to take. She certainly wants to help, but I would say give a little bit of time here. Once the infrastructure deal passes, you'll start seeing much more interaction with Kamala and the types of projects she and her office will be involved in. Number 5 in the countdown, do you foresee churches being taxed because of their involvement in politics? I do see churches getting subject now to state and federal taxes coming up. It will happen. It will happen more around kind of fair and equitable tax legislation, and certainly global churches that are taking in large sums of money will be asked to kind of carry their fair share to a certain component. So I do see state and federal taxes being a component of taxing churches. But the driving force won't be, I think the question was asked here, due to politics. So when we do politics, it'll be due to new tax laws and paying your fair share. Number 4 in the countdown, is it possible to be high vibrational level in this current lifetime and be in a lower level in our next lifetime? No, we always progress forward as we move lifetime to lifetime. However, the extent to how much you move forward lifetime to lifetime depends on your life lessons and how you grow when you're here. So you're not at a high vibrational level and come back at a lower one. You're always moving forward. Number 3 in our countdown, when animals give birth and their babies are taken from them, for example, kittens put up for adoption, how do they feel? Well, we've talked about this before. All animals are part of the angelic realm. They come down with unconditional love. They do stay connected spiritually. So they understand purpose. And even though, let's say that their kittens are given up for adoption, they do stay spiritually connected with them and they understand life purpose. So maybe it's a little bit different, insightful experience, if you will, than what humans would experience if they had to give up their children. Number two, do you see anything coming up next week? I do. I see strong movement on the Nancy Pelosi January 6th commission. I do see them trying to wrangle some more GOP to get involved. I see more evolution in Miami around the condominium collapse and new standards for buildings, and an additional couple of buildings they're going to be cited for unsafe architecture. And so we're really going to start to see this spin up in terms of safety around Miami condominiums, and architecture and safety guidelines really spinning up in a big way. I also see additional charges coming out from the SCNY regarding 45 and the Trump Organization. I also see what looks to me like, Alan Weisselberg and family taking a really good look at charges he might be facing. And we're getting very, very close to a flip here for the CFO. And last but not least, in terms of what's coming up here, it looks to me like we're going to have, unfortunately, much more significant wildfires across the U.S. and many more here in California. So they'll be ongoing over the next 2-month period, a lot of wildfires. And number one, do you have any information your guys want to share with us? They do. So they want you to understand that the world is going through a very significant transformation over the next 3 decades. So starting in 2020 all the way up to 2050, we're going through a very significant change. And what that'll mean is that the world will be quite different. People will be more enlightened. The veil to the other side will be opening up, but you're going to see a much different world over the next 3 decades. Everybody that agreed to be down here agreed to be down here to help. So the message from the guides is really kind of understanding that, again, going full circle, kind of what your life purpose is all about, how you participate in that mission, and make the world a better place. So with that thought, I'll end today's session. Wonderful getting together with you. Again, happy 4th of July to everyone, sending out goodwill and love to everybody. Again, if you want to book a session with me, just navigate to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the book online tab. And as always, I wish you a great and wonderful week. And I do have a show coming up today as well with Linda Grindle. So looking forward again to spending some time with everybody. Wishing you all the best and a lot of love. Take care.